This is TWiT.
A new rumor from Mark Gurman, who says, the next iPhone is not going to be a massive update. I don't think they're going to call it the 12S, but maybe it.
Did you say nude rumor? Because my phone blocked it.
That nude rumor, you see, you can't get nude rumors anymore.
I just got a blur.
Apple's next.
Mr. Ritchie.
Get out.
Can you please come out, sir?
I'm glad you guys can joke about that.
Take a seat.
So the new phone will have at least 3, according to Gurman. And by the way, we're like weeks away, right? We're maybe 4.
Where did 2021 go?
Yeah.
Like seriously.
What do we have a prediction for the event? It won't be Labor Day, obviously. So that means it'll probably be the 7th.
Might be later than usual.
Yeah, the 14th maybe. Yeah.
Usually it would be the what is it? The
Labor Day is the 6th, so they wouldn't do it on the 7th. So they're gonna have to do it on the 14th. That's what they did last year too, right?
Sometimes they've done the Wednesday because of Labor Day, so it would be the 8th or the 14th. But there's been rumors that it'll be slightly later just because of manufacturing. Yeah. It's hard to tell.
So we're about a month off from the iPhone 13. Will it be a 13? They're not going to worry about superstition, are they? I hope.
There was an A13. There's 13-inch. They sell 13-inch MacBooks. Yeah. They sell. I mean, they may. You know, the thing is, like, that's like. It used to be Phil Schiller. Now it's Greg Joswiak, I guess. They walk into a room and they say, this is what's going on the boxes and the posters. And like nobody has to know until... usually what happens is they have a big list. They have their preferred name on the top. And then they have a bunch of alternative names in case one of those names means something bad in another country. You know, like, for example, we can't use this because in all the Saudi countries it means XYZ instead. Oh, okay. So like MacBook Air, I think was the 12-inch MacBook was MacBook Stealth originally. And then they turned it out they hated that name. So they go through it and then they pick a name. But it's no more or less precious than that, so it could be iPhone anything, whatever they want.
Right. It will be.
Doesn't have to make any sense.
Better cameras.
They just go back to it. It's now called iPhone.
iPhone,
and there is no number, and then then we'll have the same confusion we have with iPads. Like I don't know which one I have. Yeah. You know, like it's
We know that or Gurman says, and I think it's reasonable to assume it will have a new, faster A15 chip in it. Yep. We've also seen that the display cutout is a little bit smaller. The notch is a little bit smaller.
And that'll be on TSMC's new 5-nanometer process. It won't go down yet, but it's going to be on their new, I think it's 5-nanometer P or something.
Yeah. It also, though, the biggest thing will be the camera enhancements, according to Gurman. The new handsets will include a video version of the portrait mode, which is nice. You'll also be able to record video in a higher quality format called ProRes, and a new filters-like system that improves the look and color of photos, according to people familiar with Matter.
Alex more.
So what is ProRes? Do we have any idea?
Well, is it the ProRes? It's some version of ProRes. I don't know what.
It's ProRes.
It's ProRes. It's just going to record in ProRes, Apple ProRes.
It's like Final Cut ProRes.
It's like RAW for stills.
Well, it's not RAW.
I know, because you can never do RAW video.
And I don't know whether they're going to do all of them. I'm not clear whether it'll be the same ProRes. It might be phone ProRes or something. But Apple ProRes comes in a variety of different flavors, from 444 to HQ and 422 and a variety of different, and then LT and other ones there. All of them are better than the current version that records to the iPhone, because they the current version, if you take a good example is take a 4K video and you set it to HDR or whatever, and you take it of trees, a lot of trees, and then you zoom in on that, and what you're going to see is like what looks like a little just designs, because it just can't hold all that data. Blowing trees, it can't hold all that data in the frames. Apple ProRes will let them do that, and also let them have a higher bit depth, so 10-bit and so on and so forth. Now it'll chew up. I have a feeling that it's not going to necessarily be the same.
Can't be 444 because you wouldn't have space to record, right?
Well, I think that it would be unlikely that they would implement exactly what they have there, because again, it's not uncompressed. It is compressed, but it's perceptually very, very good.
Right.
And so, but it's not like HEVC. Right? I mean, it's way more data. What?
I think what people are hoping is that it'll record internally, and it'll also let you do what Apple does, which is the preview modes that are still good enough but are tied to the original files, so that you can edit them much more quickly than you would otherwise. Sort of the proxying, forget what they call it.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see, whether it's not pixel for pixel and how they're going to implement that. But the goal will be probably that you have a lot more to edit. Like you're really turning the phones into real capture devices. Right now, they're still kind of toys. When it comes to it, it's cool that they can do what they do, and they do an amazing job.
They're pretty good.
But the quality of the capture, as someone who captures on bigger cameras, is you're still like, oh, it's cute. But the sensor and the lenses stand way out. What's the weak point right now that I think Apple's getting ready to address is what it saves it in to the phone. And again, you'll run out of drive space really fast depending on how they do it. My guess is it's going to be some version of ProRes that is not what we normally think of as ProRes. It'll be some version for the phone that's way better than HEVC, but not the ProRes that we're used to cutting. But I could be wrong.
Is HEVC that bad? It's pretty. I thought it was pretty. Pretty good.
HEVC is really good. I mean, it's really efficient for what it is. Yeah. You just have to, it's not the replacement for a true, because it's also what we call long GOP, which means that it saves very few. It's painted. It needs to have all the frames there, so cutting it becomes harder. It becomes a little more sluggish, and so what HEVC is really good at is taking a really, really big image and making it a really small image and keeping an enormous amount of the fidelity, but it's not keeping all the fidelity. As you go into ProRes, you're going to get into a possibility of keeping a lot more of that fidelity that's just impossible, and it just means it's going to be much, much larger files. So it's not that it's, but people who want to use the phone that way potentially could, and it could mean that they're also going to put much more memory in some of the phones. So the Pro version might have a couple terabytes or whatever in it, as far as memory as well.
Yeah.
And you have to transfer it over Wi-Fi because they're not giving you USB-C or Thunderbolt.
Am I foolish to think that this quote filters like?
Let me live in delusion for at least another year, Rene. Let me believe that I will not live long enough to see a portless iPhone. As sad as that might be, that I die before
I think that there's
2022.
I think that there's a high probability that it may be portless, but it doesn't mean that it will not have those kind of contacts that we see inside the iPad that could potentially support
40 gigabits per second. That's what I want.
Way more convenient than USB-C. Thank God. Thank you, Apple, for giving us pogo pins instead of a USB-C port.
There's always a Google Pixel 6 with the Calyx OS on it, Andy. For you, hardcore.
I'll drive over that cliff in that convertible with you. I want to die with you, Thelma.
MKV and Og Vorbis editing just a step away.
There's something satisfying, by the way, about moving to a cabin in the woods and being off the grid. I'm just saying.
If you do patent encumbered Linux, it's even more fun.
Oh God! So they do call. So Gurman says a new filters-like system that improves the look and colors of photos. Reading between the lines, maybe a LUT system of some kind, or what do you think that is?
Maybe they'll bring Gotham back now that Instagram is never going to do that.
I'm sorry, I do not get those references. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, being able to apply LUTs would be amazing.
Wouldn't that be nice?
Like have it kind of built in, and it opens up a whole new set of things that are, and LUTs for people who are listening are basically what they're lookup tables. So they basically just say transfer. It's like a curve that you'd see in Photoshop, but imagine that in 3D. And so it's just moving the color information in the color inside of, if you think of color as a cube, it's moving it inside of that space so that you can do very delicate transforms. And they come in different numbers of points of resolution, but anyway, it's how a lot of us transform a lot of video.
And it's so it's not to say that you would want, I know you would, but I would want to do this 3D manipulation, but that if they used a standard like that for filtering, people like Alex could create LUTs that you could then download.
Well, and there are apps that do LUTs now. I mean, I think that you can do LUTs with Filmic Pro, and I think some of that stuff is already there. It's not like it doesn't exist, but having it really easy and part of the phone, and just something like, oh, I can load a LUT, into it. There's a lot of LUTs out there that would be people would really enjoy.
Yeah.
So you get to see what it looks like when you shoot it.
Am I crazy to kind of read between the lines on a new filters-like system and think maybe that's LUTs?
That's if you didn't know what a LUT was, that might be how you'd describe it.
Yeah, exactly.
Leo,
it's like filters, but they're not.
it's not real, so it could be anything we want it to be. When they announce it, we'll all be disappointed because it won't be exactly what we want. But for now, we can dream.
We think that it's actually a 200-point LUT. That doesn't really exist, but it would be amazing.
It's a new,
such a beautiful lie.
filters-like system that
made
improves
a deal with Ari.
the look and colors of photos. The look. And
it just sounds.
colors
It sounds.
like
It just
LUTs,
sounds
right?
very much like LUTs.
Yeah.
Like again, a press person who doesn't know what that is.
Right.
It's a Peter
sound
McKinnon,
a lot like that.
Or yeah, you know,
Lightroom-
I bet Mark
Lightroom
does,
preset
Gurman
pack.
does, but he's not going to. Maybe he's not going to put that in Bloomberg. I don't know.
Does he?
Does he? Does he really?
Yeah, does he?
Beyond the camera enhancements,
It's
the
not
new
basketball.
iPhones will get, he says, relatively modest upgrades because of the big redesign this year and the 5G wireless networking and so forth. Same
Getting a
five.
better modem. I'm looking forward to that.
Will we get a better modem? Not a Qualcomm.
Yeah,
in other
the
words.
X60.
Yeah.
It'll still be Qualcomm. Except last year we got the X65, the X55. Now we're getting the X60, which is on Samsung's 5-nanometer process, so it's not quite so power hungry.
Good. So better battery life. Same 5.4-inch and 6.1-inch regular sizes, 6.7-inch Pro. Same design. It would be what Apple
If you
used
like
to call
the small
an S.
iPhone,
Yeah.
it could still be. It could still be a 12S. That's a marketing decision. If they want to goose sales, they use a full number. If they want to lower expectations, they use an S. But if you like the small version of the phone, that's apparently the last year they're going to make, at least for a while, they're going to make a mini iPhone. So if you want that, get it now and then ride that into the sunset like you're John Moltz.
The ProRes feature, he writes, would follow last year's edition of ProRAW. Here's more about the filters. Another feature will let users better control the look of colors and highlights in their pictures. Users will be able to choose from several styles to apply to their photos, including for showing colors at either a warmer or cooler temperature while keeping whites neutral. Another option will add a more dramatic look with deeper shadows and more contrast. And the company is planning a more balanced style for showing shadows and true-to-life colors with a brighter appearance. It will differ from standard filters by precisely applying changes to objects and people across the photos using AI rather than a single filter across the entire picture. Oh, that isn't LUTs, but that's something interesting.
Yeah.
That's content-aware filters.
Separating the lighting effects for foreground and background would be pretty big.
Yeah.
Well, and that's potentially using the LiDAR to know what are objects and what aren't. And so it can use AI, but in some of the phones, it'll actually know these are subjects for this and these aren't. So it's really interesting.
At the very bottom of the article, he says the company is also working on a revamped MacBook Pros with in-house chips likely to be dubbed M1X, a redesigned iPad mini, and an entry-level iPad geared at students. It's also preparing new Apple Watches and entry-level AirPods. Obviously, not obviously, but I doubt they'd announce all of that next month.
The AirPods are easy to float into an iPhone announcement, and then it just depends if they're ready, because they want to sell them for the school season if they can. If they're not ready,
earlier
they'll
is
do
better.
October.
Yeah.
But people like a lot of the stuff becomes practical. It's like Apple's like, is it ready to ship? Yes. What's the next event? Okay, do it. It's not much more complicated than that.
But I would think that there's also a sense of we don't want to dilute the impact of the iPhone, right?
They want to sell, and there's people who are buying a MacBook who won't buy an iPhone.
Right. Okay.
And also considering how much money comes in because of AirPods, the sooner you can turn those taps on, I'm sure, the better as far as Apple's concerned.
Yeah.